Welcome to Wellness is a Way of Life, the podcast for female leaders seeking sustainable energy, clarity, and confidence. I'm Megan Swan, your guide on a journey to mastering wellness as an integrated part of your life. Let's explore personalized wellness strategies that truly resonate with who you are. Welcome back to Wellness is a Way of Life. Today, I'm joined by someone who is not only a phenomenal entrepreneur and expert in her field, but also one of my dearest sober sisters, Amy Tanzillo. Amy is the founder and owner of Thrive Breastfeeding, where for over a decade, she's been guiding new mothers through one of life's most profound and challenging transitions. As an international board-certified lactation consultant, she combines clinical expertise with genuine compassion to help moms and babies establish nurturing connections during these critical early months. But Amy's impact extends far beyond breastfeeding support. She's also a highly successful six-figure business coach who specializes in helping other moms transform their professional certifications into thriving businesses. Her coaching philosophy centers on creating ventures that deliver both meaningful impact and personal freedom. One of the things we deeply align on, of course, something she's mastered in her own entrepreneurial journey. What makes Amy's perspective so valuable is how she integrates her professional knowledge with her personal experience. As a proud mother of 3 teenagers and a woman in recovery, she understands firsthand the unique challenges and opportunities that come with balancing family life, personal well-being, and professional ambitions. When she's not empowering new mothers or coaching budding entrepreneurs, you'll likely find her at her happy place, the Jersey Shore. Thrilled to welcome my dear friend and recovery sister to talk all things evolving as an entrepreneur and the importance of empowering mothers. Please join me welcoming Amy. Amy?
Hello, Megan. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. What an intro.
So let's start at the bottom there. What do you love so much about the Jersey Shore? Tell us.
Oh, what's not to love? So I was raised there, probably only like 45 minutes west of the Jersey Shore, which is such easy access, like unlike other parts of the country where we would skip school in high school and just zip on down to the beach for the day. And it was just such a huge part of my upbringing. And it's the salt air and the sand and an electricity that's at the Jersey Shore that I think is very unique. So I absolutely love it. And maybe it's even a little more special to me now that I am raising my kids in a bubble of a very, let's just say, privileged area in the United States. And I love to take them to where I grew up at the Jersey Shore because it's very salt of the earth and grounded people that I love for them to kind of get a reality check of how other people live.
Yeah, I love that. I think like we generally bonded to some degree on our love of the beach as like a recharge. Yes. Okay. So let's back up. You became passionate about helping moms understand breastfeeding because of your own journey, or was that not the origin story?
Yes. So I was, either pregnant or breastfeeding for about 5 years straight. My kids are back to back to back. I had 3 kids in 39 months and wasn't as so enamored with the breastfeeding thing. I certainly breastfed, but it was more of just being in the trenches of a mom and everything that comes with that. And, how important support is, that kind of got me down, to look down that path. And, by the time I had my 3rd, I was home with my kids and really wanted to do something to bring in income for the family and go back to work to some capacity, but I didn't want to go back to corporate. So I was kind of thinking, what can I do that I would enjoy, make impact, but I could do it on a schedule around raising 3 kids. So that's kind of how I went down that road.
Brilliant. And am I right that, breastfeeding's trendy? I mean, probably has been for a while, but I feel like there was a moment more in like my mom's generation and the one after where, it wasn't maybe so normalized. It was more a formula world.
Yes, absolutely. And I think when something becomes like the best thing to do for your child and gets that messaging behind it when you live in an area, especially like I do in the DC area, that every ambitious mom is looking to do the best, right? So it does become trendy in terms of like keeping up with the Joneses right there behind the preschools and, all the things that you can get kids involved in around here that, yeah, I think that breastfeeding is the thing to do. And there's a lot of pressure around that too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're preaching to the choir. I breastfed both my kids as long as I could. And I, understand all of the amazing health benefits. So I don't really want to get too much into the specifics of breastfeeding, but maybe
Mhm.
just touch on like why you're for a mom who's probably, trying to get back to work and then juggling this, like trying to be the best mom pressure with also needing to bring in the bacon, so to speak.
I think it's more important now than ever because there's so much information on social media that we get bombarded with on a daily basis, and frankly, wrong information. Just one little example is it is so glamorized to have this stockpile of where moms are posting where their freezer is just packed to the gills with all this breast milk, and there's such a badge of honor with it. And it really does create a lot of problems. Not only does it make the other mom who has a normal supply feel inadequate and really have a complex, but pumping that much milk really can have a downside for the baby. Gagging or choking or sputtering at the breast, putting yourself at risk for a breast infection because you have such an abundance amount of milk that you can't move as quickly as you would need to. So I think just having that one single expert to guide you through a time when there is so much information out there is just absolutely invaluable from
Yeah,
from the very get-go.
I think that's where like our work is probably pretty similar in that we're just distilling information and helping women like trust their instincts, trust nature, trust like go back
Yeah,
to the basics and make that okay instead of, keeping up with the trends.
right. Yeah. Really where I pride myself on a provider of just having so much access to me during the time that we're working together to weed just through so much noise.
Yeah. So like you've been doing that for a while, but you've built up this really incredible business doing it. So talk me through at what point you decided, uh, was it just a client coming to you and being like, hey, can you show me how to make a business out of this too?
So, really, where it came to expand my services, and you and I have been in coaching cohorts together where so many other entrepreneurs have been successful in this department, which is where I was lacking, is I didn't have anything to market back to my client. So, for example, I've been in containers where you do that first container, you fall in love with the coach, you learn, you grow, you make more money from them. And so you want to do what's next, and so on and so forth. And a lot of these successful coaches have one client in two or three or even four programs, and I didn't have that. So I would work with you for 3 months and get breastfeeding well established, help you get through that first initial months of motherhood, and then we were done. And the investment of getting someone to know, like, and trust you and buy from you. And then we were done. I didn't want to get into starting solids. I didn't want to get into sleep consulting. Nothing really in that niche interests me. So that's when I decided to go down the road of the coaching certification to have something to market back to my audience. And is it more limiting because there's only going to be a small percentage of breastfeeding moms that want to start their own business? Yeah. But I also wanted something that I really wanted to pass on to other moms that I'm really passionate about. So I have that proven track record of doing it with a breastfeeding business, but I feel like the fundamentals are there in place for any mom. And I really do want to target moms because a big part of it is that juggle that has a service based business that they need to get launched and then scaled to a consistent 10Ks a month is kind of what my pitch is to other moms.
Yeah. And so, I mean, also even more important in your service, which is clearly only going to be needed for a short window. It's not like
Right.
you might have some repeat customers, of course, but it's not going to be in a given year.
Yes. Yeah, you're exactly right. I talked to a mom on Friday who was a Thrive Breastfeeding alum who was looking to use me for business coaching, and she's a perinatal therapist. And I referred her a client over a year ago, and she's still working with that person on a weekly basis. And that's great residual revenue, right? Which I don't have. So that's when I was thinking, what could I market back to my mom to continue our journey together?
Yeah. So talk us through, I mean, I love that you're focusing on moms. Uh focus like talk us through the juggle because I mean, you're at 3 kids, like my respect. Two is enough.
Yeah.
The juggle and then also, a little bit maybe of the natural imposter syndrome that you walked yourself through to get on the other side of standing in this six-figure business coach
Hmm.
label.
I think what really empowered me, which of course everything comes from another coach that had done it before me that I hired for mentorship, is moving away from a turn and burn model that is so prevalent in so many service-based businesses. 100% in the lactation world, right? Where you really market yourself to see a mom once. And it really came with that packaging where it's a transformation, it's a long-standing relationship of more than just a consultation, which I did for years. I mean, Thrive Breastfeeding was a side hustle here and there for a decade before I went all in to make it like a true, honest to God business that supports me and my 3 kids. And I was stuck in just like new mom over and over again instead of serving fewer clients with a much higher value. And I think it was after making that transition and then seeing the revenue impact of that that I felt like, okay, I can turn around and show other moms how to do this. And then that naturally opens up the space for more balance, right? Because every mom entrepreneur wants a big, huge driver there is to own their own business. So you can be available for your kids and call the shots and make the schedule so you can be there for the sports and the activities and the holidays and taking them to camp and taking them when they go off to school and all of these things, which is impossible if you just have such a stacked back to back to back client and not seeing the big picture of offering high value versus high volume.
Yeah, and I mean, as an entrepreneur, I mean, to me, it's always been a huge factor, the theoretical flexibility in your schedule and
Yeah.
potentially geographical flexibility, right? Too, which
Yes.
your first business, I think, really was limited in the ways that you could scale it without, it was very in person and you're, somewhat of the whim, certainly of like when they're needing to be in breastfeeding mode, like you're at the whim of their schedules. Whereas with the business coaching, I think there's so much more space to
A
thrive as a mama.
100%. Me and you are gonna like meet in Mexico for a month, and
Yeah.
then we can service our clients from down there. And absolutely right, Megan. I do not have that freedom at all when all of my revenue is coming from local families. And I still want to serve moms and babies with breastfeeding, but when you introduce the coaching also as a component of how you make your living, then you could be more limited, right? Like say that you really got up and running with this coaching business where it was more than half of your revenue, maybe you only take fall due dates or you don't take winter due dates when you want to be working from, somewhere nice and warm or wherever you want in the world. And that's really where I want to get to as my children are getting older, because it'll eventually I'll have a lot more freedom of, yeah, being able to work from wherever I want.
What did you refer to the cost of your teenagers the other day? That was so spot
The
on.
cost spent, yeah, 3 cost centers and woo. Yeah.
3 cost centers. Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I mean, that might be some interesting material if you draw the comparisons, because I mean, at every stage, some aspect of child rearing is very expensive, whether it's you need
Oh,
childcare or the
my
endless
goodness.
programs, the dental bill, like, oh my goodness.
On and on and on, right? And that's a big part of my messaging that I like to attract a certain type of entrepreneur because in my field especially, it really is a field for the bleeding heart. I mean, what lactation consultant or doula or a midwife or anyone that is serving another mom does not put their whole heart into it, which is 100% the case with me, but I also have to support myself and my 3 kids. So I approached it very differently than providers that it's like nice to have income or income that is, just nice extra maybe for a vacation or a renovation for around the house. And that's wonderful. But if you want to truly make it a business to support yourself, there's definitely a way to do it. And it just doesn't have to be this, place that's typically seen as soft and a place where you can't make any money, because it's not true. You can. It's how
Yeah.
you approach it.
Yeah, I get that, especially coming from the yoga world. There's a lot of that
Yes.
bleeding heart mentality of like, oh, I'm servicing something spiritual. How could I possibly, charge? And yeah, I think you and I are very aligned that there's a way that you're, putting more capital in your family's generational wealth bucket and also being of service and,
Mhm.
making the world a better place.
I agree.
Is there some, strategy or I don't know, mantra that you've used over the years? And were you ever on the other side or were you always like, okay, charging what you were worth?
Oh gosh, no. I mean, so much of that is the mindset coaching. No, I was scared to death. I think the biggest thing that comes to mind for anyone is that you're afraid people aren't going to pay. And you think some money is better than more money sometimes, right? Like I'm afraid to bump up my consultation rate by even $50, because then what if they decide not to use me and they go to someone else? But that's so much mindset work that comes with so much of the program that we were in together, really truly knowing your worth and really truly getting behind of what you bring to the table. But I do think that that's like a never ending journey, because as you grow, and not that you necessarily keep charging more and more and more, but you're doing different things and you're offering different things, it's that muscle that needs to be exercised all the time of reflecting what you can actually bring to a mom. And I think it's really funny what we can do sometimes automatically is like put our spending power. We think sometimes for our clients, like here I was 5 years ago, a single parent with 3 kids. That's not probably any of the clients that I serve in Northern Virginia and DC. They're almost all double income with really good, powerful, corporate jobs where it's they want a certain level of service and are not only willing to pay for it, but they can pay for it and they expect to pay for it. So I think it's also just really doing a lot of work on get out of people's wallet. Your wallet is not their wallet, and offer what you are worth and then let that client decide.
Yeah. I was walking the other day and there was a gentleman closing up I think he was an electrician,
Hmm.
but closing up his van and he had a hoodie on that said, pay me for my experience, not my time.
Yeah,
I need that hoodie.
exactly. I love that because it's probably even a lot more efficient, right? The time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, especially when you're problem solving in something like lactation, like you having
Mhm.
10 years of experience versus someone who just came out of lactation school.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that is just like the volume of seeing different clients and having some things to compare it to and experience over the years collapses time
Yeah.
for the moms.
You're absolutely right. And it brings me to an example where I had a client who's now a friend of mine. And I love this whole coaching world because I feel like we just pass our money around and pass it back and forth. But she hired me because her baby girl would not take a bottle. And it was a package that had multiple visits. And after the first visit, she was done. And I would see her at different networking events. I'm like, Cass, you still have a visit with me. There was something that in my heart that felt like she was leaving something on the table. And I kept reminding her, and finally she turned around. She said, "Aim, the baby takes the bottle," meaning like you did
Solve
it.
the problem.
Yeah, you solved the problem. It's right. It's that transformation that happened. Baby wouldn't take the bottle. You came over. Now she takes the bottle. So I don't care about the second. I don't care about the second visit. We're done. You did what you said to do. So I think it's also coming like people aren't paying per hour, like the electrician. People aren't paying per session, it's like problem solved. And then I ended up hiring her for 2 months of mindset coaching. So she paid me for the baby, then I paid her back for business coaching. So, but it's true, right? I mean, you probably come across that where someone may have a health issue and then it may be this, more comprehensive package, but you
Yeah,
could
I've learned to
possibly,
only follow up once, just reminding them like, "Hey, there's this session
yes,
sitting there," and then, balls in your court.
yep, yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so the other thing I wanted to touch on that, you and I share is that we are both sober, and I'll let you talk about because I described you as in recovery. I don't think you describe yourself that way. And how you throw that into your business because I have, been very public my whole sober journey, which is
Mhm,
7 years now, and I think through that tended to attract clients that were either already sober or,
mhm,
were willing to maybe reconsider their relationship with alcohol at some point. But, a lot of high achieving women already are aware that that's like, not their best,
mhm.
it's not the best choice to be leaning on that for stress relief or anything. And certainly in the mommy world. So I'm curious, does this come up in conversation with clients? Because obviously breastfeeding moms are not drinking. Do they like
Yes.
ask you questions like, hey, how are you doing that?
It's funny, Megan, they don't. And it's rarely touched upon. And I think it's because I see them with these babies that are days old and they are so in the trenches of just keeping that thing alive and fed and cared for that I don't have moms asking me all the time of like, well, how much can I drink? When can I drink? And of course, like occasionally a text, maybe like further down the line, but it's not a big focus there. I just don't think it's front of mind for most moms when they're in the thick of that because I'm like there waiting for the wings for when the baby arrives. And it's so funny how this journey works of being an entrepreneur because I got certified to be a coach, to be an alcohol-free coach. And my backstory is when I went all in on the business, I really quit my job at corporate before I even had enough money really to sustain us. I think I'm a
Nothing like
type
lighting a
B.
little fire underneath you.
Yeah. Definitely like a type B mom of like not so like not the spreadsheets and the forecasting and this organized of like, okay, I'm just going to do this. And when I did that, I said to myself, if I'm going all in on this, I got to be at my best and I have to be running on all cylinders. And what would it look like to start this business off without drinking alcohol just for 30 days? And that just snowballed. And you're right. I don't identify with being in recovery. I don't even really I don't have an issue with the word sober, but I didn't feel like I had to get sober. I definitely drank wine like a lot and loved it and was a professional and loved it with getting the dinner ready and certainly had occasions where I drank way too much, but it wasn't at a rock bottom or any place where I felt like it had to stop. It was more that I was scared to death this business was going to fail and I didn't want to go back to an office. So I was trying to put everything in place that I possibly could to be successful. And because it was successful and I hit six figures by year two, which I'm proud of, and multi six figures by year four, I thought
Congratulations.
that thank you, that the alcohol free was such a huge component. Of course it is. I mean, that was
Of
the
course
keys to
it
the
is. And you
castle.
and I know because we took that whole program together to get certified,
Mhm.
amongst other things, for the alcohol-free life coaching. But it sounds like way before you had this instinct that it was a success factor. So where did that come from?
Yes. I think that you can get by with the status quo or just enough, or it's fine when you're working for someone else,
Mm. Woo, goosebumps.
right?
So true. It's
I
like
mean, I
so
did,
stressful it's like a
yes,
roller coaster as an entrepreneur and you need to be at your best. It's
you need to be at
sprints
your
among
best.
marathons in sprints and sprints and marathons and yeah, lots of unknowns.
And the direction the new business took or the new arm, I mean, I leaned on you a lot just for some counsel of like, I really thought that I wanted to turn back to my moms who now are out of the breastfeeding. They're getting into the toddlers where they're irrational and it's stressful. And you get into the mom groups where there's that community, which I could still certainly help with this, but that's where I really thought that all my energy would go into being an alcohol-free coach for moms who are in the trenches, who are drinking their faces off with their other mommy friends with the sippy cup culture and not showing up fully as a mom. But as soon as I announced that I was certified after our program, I had Thrive Breastfeeding clients step forward to say, show me how to build the business like you did. So I,
The universe was like,
yes,
I
so
don't know. You
6
want to
figures.
go with that?
Right. So it's not really up in front with my messaging. Although it's funny because you and I even talked about it of like, should I kind of sprinkle that in a little bit more? Or, probably will come up with one-on-one coaching if there are things that are holding an entrepreneur back. But I said, what the heck, the other day, and I posted that I don't drink. And the post did so much better than any post that I've posted recently, and so many likes and so many comments and so many, wow, that's inspiring. So maybe I
Yeah, well,
am missing
maybe
out on
not where
something.
you yeah, I mean, I'm sure it'll shift, but I mean, I exist in internet bubbles where like it's just so trendy right now to
Mhm.
drink less at the very or at least have a different awareness. And I'm optimistic about that and grateful for this next generation of moms because, I was
Mhm.
living in a different narrative where, motherhood and wine were deeply linked.
Do you find that it comes up a lot just as a part of your program? Or do you find, I'm curious if, you know, your client just can't get it together where they feel good and they're just missing the glaring piece that's so obvious to you that they can't see? Is that hard for you?
No, I mean, I definitely bring it to their attention. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's really important to earn trust by helping them see the transformation that they think they want first,
Hmm.
and then come in with and you know what? We could like 10x this if
Yeah.
we look at this other thing over here that to you is just a given.
That's interesting. Yeah. I would think that that wouldn't be also uncommon.
Yeah, but I feel the more that I'm leaning into the female founders in the startup space and specifically tech, they seem to be, there's not it's not the same as corporate in terms of there being
Right.
sort of this default, at conferences, like sure there's events, but I don't see anyone getting messy. It's like a different vibe.
It's a different vibe. Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. So tell us, like, what are you excited about for the rest of the year in this budding business?
So I just want to go all in helping more moms launch their business. I am still absolutely serving my moms and babies here in DC, but I really want to focus on a mom who just feels like either she's still in corporate and doing something very unfulfilling and doesn't know how to do that initial launch with everything from the basics that we obviously know so well by now, with the website and the LLC and the taxes and getting all those systems up and running in the email. And, one of my clients didn't even know what a freebie was, all these things that we take for granted of just those, basic building blocks, to the mom who is running the business, but just kind of doing okay.
Mhm.
I spoke with two clients, prospective clients on Friday that didn't even have a revenue goal for the month.
I saw
And
you I saw you post a story and I'm like, I think she just spoke to someone.
yeah. Yes, like,
Your little rants on like,
yeah, number
ladies.
one. Yeah. How much do you wanna make? And the mom was like, "Well, I don't know. I just really want." I happen to be a lactation consultant. Obviously, I will attract those type of entrepreneurs just because I'm in that space. But I don't know. I just want to help moms and babies. I'm like, oh, okay, but then we need to establish what that number looks like to you and then back out of it. So I just want to empower so many. And I just have such a soft spot, obviously, for moms who are told and think that they can't have it all in terms of the balance and contributing to their household income where they can, and charging their worth and knowing their worth. And, as I'm getting more and more into the business space, I'm really, I think initially you weed out and qualify who your ideal client is. And I had two entrepreneurs that couldn't wrap their head around raising their price by like $25. And it's just amazing, and they were smart and competent and had
Probably
the
like
business
less
off
than
the ground.
inflation.
I know. It's like
Yeah.
a Starbucks run if I have my kids with me, right? Who gets the cake pop or who wants the extra whatever, or the girl gets the big tall pink drink. Like you're at $25 without even thinking about it. But it's doing the mindset piece too. That is such a big part of it of, yeah, getting behind what you're actually bringing to the table. And I think one of the biggest thing is that so many of these business owners are looking to what other people in their space are charging. I had another discovery call. The mom was going on a website that told her what is the average fee. That happened to be
Yeah, where it's
a
like maybe the
speech
scores
therapist.
that you've been putting out, right? Like, would you be so lowballing?
Yes. But you're not the provider down the street. You're not the same as Joni there in the next town over. You're you. So charge your worth and what you're bringing to the table and make your deliverable different, right?
Yeah.
Where
Well, and I think
it's
it's
not the same
also
exact thing.
not, I mean, getting sort of sucked into the internet bubble of seeing prices, but then not actually understanding reverse engineering them, like what's involved in
Right.
covering your costs so that,
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. And everything that goes into it. I mean, for a lactation consultant, you think, oh, I'm at their house for 90 minutes. Well, what about the commute there and the commute back and the gas and the wear and tear on the call and all the marketing that went into like landing them in the first place? Yeah. So, especially in my space with a lactation consultant, they think that they need to account for a 90-minute visit, but they don't consider the 30 minutes to get there and then back and all the marketing that went into to acquire the client. Forget even the gas and the wear and tear and the supplies that you give away at the visit. And you're absolutely right of really thinking of all of the cost to you that goes into it. Yeah. So it's important to sometimes just have another set of eyes that can see all of that when you can't, when you're so thick in it. I still do, but not this for 5 years. I've never not have a coach.
yeah. Well, I love that you're empowering these moms to ask their worth and not be bleeding heart. So what's the best way to get in touch with you? We will share all of your links in the show notes, but what do you prefer is the way to be in touch?
I am the most active on Instagram. I have 2 accounts. The Thrive Breastfeeding is to follow along for breastfeeding information, tips and tricks and education. Amy Tanzillo Coaching, if you want to launch and scale to a 6-figure businesswoman, that's where you would find me there. And all of my packages and information is on my website, thrivebreastfeeding.com.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I know you know that I just admire you so much, and meeting you in Palm Springs was a highlight of that trip. So thank you.
Oh, I feel the same. Our little pool chats. Thanks for tuning in to Wellness is a Way of Life. Are you ready to make wellness a natural part of your routine? Let's stay connected. Go to meganswanwellness.com. Until next time, live well and thrive.